is episode 85 of the PowerTech Development Podcast.
Yep.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
We've been pretty consistent, I must say.
That's the question, right? Like, when do you run out of things to talk about, like, in general? It's one of the questions about marriage. It's like, how long could you actually sit there in the same room and just keep coming up with shit to talk about?
Man, you know what's... You know,
Look at how
hey,
fired up you're pointing at
I got a note on that.
Okay.
Because people don't think about this stuff, right? I was talking to my Christine. We're not married, but I was talking to my Christine about this the other day. And it's like, she was saying, she made a comment about like, well, you got to try to keep it interesting, like when you're talking to each other, kind of along the lines you're saying. And yes, but you also have to be good about the mundane.
Oh yeah.
To use a term.
Yeah, that's a term.
That's the thing. It's like the 80% of the time it's going to be, how was your day?
Yeah.
And then actually give a shit about the answer and actually participate in the discussion about the day-to-day stuff, because you can't be, no one's that creative. How creative are you going to be? Make a new conversation with your wife or husband every single time you talk, every morning. It's like, hey, morning, I've seen you the last 4,875 days in a row.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you gotta be good with the day-to-day.
And if you say, how's your day, it's actually important to listen.
Yeah. Right? You gotta actually give a shit about how the day was. The little details that you'd think if someone else told you, you wouldn't care about.
Yeah. Well, like the wife, if they ask her, like sometimes the messages aren't as clear, right? Because we're guys.
That's right. Yeah.
So you say something and they'll say, words come out in different ways, and you got to kind of navigate that, or else you never listen. But it was. You didn't get what was important and stuff. So it's a tricky business. Pretty important.
And us men are simple. We're simple creatures. Yep. So it can be tricky from the male perspective. Not that I'm what would the marriage counselor?
Conversational guru.
Yeah, a conversational guru or a psychologist of any
You're
sort.
Pretty good though. You have good conversations.
Well,
but the thing is though, so why do we get along well?
You and I?
Yeah, like I'll tell you one of the reasons is
we're married.
We're married. No, but one of the reasons is you grow, I grow. Right? Yeah. So if I say, like you suggested a book, actually, it's called Tough from one of the customers, and I'm picking it up today probably. I want to give that a go. He said it's good. I'm going to look at it first, but that's something like, oh, Andy, read this book, and I'll come back and I'll give you some stuff. And while I'm doing that, you're reading another book or we're listening. There's a lot of common interest, so there's a growth thing there. So like, you'll always get along. So whereas if I'm a 53-year-old man and I'm still stuck doing my the year 2000 drills, and my attitude's the same as year 2000, and you're more current, then it's like there's a huge gap, and then there's less and less to talk about, right? I'll talk about how it used to be, and you'll talk about how it's going to be, and I'll be looking at you like you got three eyeballs, and you'll be looking at me like you haven't changed. So in relationships like that, with marriages and anybody really, where you spend a significant amount of time, or you know what I mean? Like you've talked about this too. You've met friends who you in junior used to get along with, like, and I've done this too. You got along with them really well, and then all of a sudden you haven't seen them for 10 years. Well, you haven't had the 10-year gap, but I've seen one of my best friends hadn't seen each other for 22 years. When he came to town, it was like he thought I was a genius. And I'm not joking. He thought I was like so successful and just like, wow, look what you're doing and all this kind of stuff. And he hasn't changed one bit. That's why I look like I'm actually doing something. I'm not that successful. I'm okay, but I have a little bit of growth. So your marriages, your relationships and stuff like that, sometimes you want to hang on to those things that you used to have, but people grow.
Yeah.
You know, I think people grow and people say the same. So growth is important. The only evidence of life is growth.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice.
I think that's true statement. Though.
Yeah, I know. It's the challenge part. That's what I like. It's the not challenge in the sense of like combative, but challenge like you challenge me with something you tell me, I challenge you with something I tell you, in the best kind of way, not in a start a fight or argument kind of way. And that's the term challenge can be interpreted the wrong way there, but that's not what I mean. It's just like that constant, bringing people up kind of thing. And it's cool because then you always have something to talk about. Like I said, we see each other every day for 8 hours a day, and it's like, it's not really very dull.
No, we're pretty fired up in here. That's the top of it. But I was just thinking about this too. is like from a coaching perspective, right? Because you're current, like you're a lot more current than these kids. Like when I got that one group that, like, I never work with these kids that are like 12 and under.
Yeah.
So I've got that one group, and I had Charlie show some of the drills, demo and stuff, and he did the exact same thing as me. But when he did it, they were looking at, oh, okay. But when I was doing it, they were like looking at me. I'm being honest. And probably some of them looking at, you look like my grandpa.
Yeah.
Like you're old.
Yeah, you're the
like,
teacher.
How
Yeah.
do you teach? And it was so funny the other day. One kid comes up to me, cute little kid, and he goes up to me. He goes, how did he say this? He goes, "Do you work for the company?" I said, "What company is that, kid?" And he goes, "For like PowerTech." I said, "Yeah, I actually own it." He goes, "Oh." Like he didn't, and
No
that's what's
clue.
pretty neat. The
Yeah.
customers, like the younger group, they have no idea who I am.
Right.
Right. But anyways, my point to that is growth. So a lot of kids, like, as a coach, and it's interesting, NHL coaches, strength coaches, you'll deal with it, and I know you deal with it, is like, I'll use yours for example. You come into the gym and someone comes in and they've been doing YouTube videos, which is good. Fine, they're trying something, right?
Yep.
Or Instagram or TikToks, and and they might come to you and say, why do I can I do this? I've been trying this, and there's no context to it. But for you're probably more relatable, but I have to really make a really good decision to say, well, it's stupid. Because if it's stupid, I'm totally out of tune with what they're doing.
Right.
Right. So I have to embrace, as an older person that doesn't like technology, and taking one clip of something and saying it's stupid, that doesn't sit well with the kids. Right. So, and I learned that with my own son and his friends, right? To not shut down everything real fast. So that's another piece of growth on my point, is to be able to look at a kid and say, okay, well, that's a pretty good exercise, or that's a good drill, but the context of it is, what is it for, and how, and can you implement it there? Because even Charlie, sometimes he'll say, hey, Dad, can we work on this drill? I want to be moving a little bit more and stuff. I go, well, or do something a little more stationary, whatever. I go, well, it's a great idea, but today we have 23 kids on the ice. That doesn't work. Oh, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways,
sure.
it's just relatable all the time. So that's why growth is important.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about the coaching thing too, especially because like you said, I'm closer in age to a lot of the kids that we have. But if YouTube and social media and whatever is their whole life, you can't just say it's stupid, right? You can't just say stop watching that.
That's
you can't. It's a better strategy to show them how to use it properly, how to use it to their advantage. We've talked about the social media thing a bit before, but because it's not all bad. Like, this is the other thing too. It's starting to today now. There's this the narrative about social media is very negative. Like, social media is very bad. It does this bad thing, and it's bad for mental health and all these things that it's bad for. And that some of that's true for sure.
Some of it for sure.
Let's not forget why it's so popular and amazing. And let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, right?
Just it's over. Yeah, as I say. Yeah.
But there's so many benefits you can get to it. So if you, as a coach or as an adult or as a parent, if you just go to your kid and say, well, this is stupid, shut it off, or stop watching that crap, or whatever. And I'm not saying it's never warranted to say that. Sometimes it is, but as a tool, if you're talking about in the context of hockey or skill stuff or whatever, they're watching their entertainment through that, and they think something looks cool. Like, don't just go say this is stupid. Maybe you talk to them in the way you said, just, well, why, what's the context? How could we use this properly or not, or whatever?
Well, it's funny. My wife brought it up to me because, Charlie and I are tighter than, like shit and shovel, right?
It's all day, man.
I know.
All day.
I'm trying to keep it calm here. Anyways, him and I are like shit and shovel. Basically, our thoughts are so aligned, and like if one thing is off, we both look at each other like we could tell, right? But during this season, I think I've said this before, is he was talking about chirping a little bit on the ice, and to me, no, no chirping. Like, talk is cheap. Go about things quietly. Blah 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 blah. All that stuff, because when your mouth gets you in trouble. I talked about this before. And so he told Mom, he goes, hey, Mom, Dad doesn't get it, eh? Dad doesn't get it. He goes, the game's changed so much, Mom. He goes, you have to chirp now because there's less fighting and stuff. And so I said, okay. I said, there may be something to that. And because I don't want him to not tell me
Yeah, because he thinks you won't listen or won't
Yeah,
like
or
it
I'm going to
whatever.
judge him or whatever, right? So I do want to embrace that, and I will say, okay, maybe there is something to it. Your chirps are part of it, but I still stand by what I say because your mouth gets you in more trouble than not. But I do embrace what he says. Like maybe there is a piece of it.
Yeah, and it's like, where's the line kind of thing.
Where's the line?
Right?
Maybe there's a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because I mean, because you do find guys, for the most part, I think you're right. The mouth thing gets you in trouble, but you find guys that can use it effectively.
Right.
And if he's one of the guys that can have a bit of that
Right.
in his game because he can back it up or because whatever other reason, then maybe that's fine. But yeah, you don't want to be shutting him down when it's something that's, part of his life. So that's a hot start.
Got another one.
Along the same lines. Well, how much time we got here?
We got time. Like I'm just gonna say something that was really nice last week.
Oh, okay, sure. Go ahead.
Jesus. Try to be a nice guy. You don't have to be all the time. So we're doing our podcast last week. Oh, by the way, sunshine.
Oh,
I'm so thrilled with it.
What a change to your day
Changes
when it's sunny
everything.
out. Honestly, I could do a whole episode about sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, no kidding. But last week there was a storm when we were doing our podcast. But
Mhm.
anyways, we were sitting here doing a podcast and we saw people coming at the door. There was a baseball tournament beside us.
Cool.
And there's these people kind of looking in. Never thought anything of it. People do that a lot. Anyways, you went out to do your dishes and pee. And then a couple minutes later, I came out and I went to do my dishes and pee. And you were talking to the baseball team and all that stuff. And I said, "Oh, you guys know each other?" And they go, "No." But then they said that they were members on our site from Kincardine, Ontario. A couple of them, right?
Yeah, follow the podcast.
So the Houghton family.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. So they actually, the neat thing of that I thought was funny. So we brought them in, gave them a tour of the place. They loved it. It was great and really nice people, just fantastic people. So they gave them the tour, and then what I mentioned to you, which I thought was kind of cool, is that So I asked the lady. I said she told me, she said she was coming in and she saw our logo on the building. She goes, "No way, that can't be the place," because she had no idea. So they played the game. The game got rained out for a little bit, so they were in the lobby, came in here, they were looking around. So when we went out there, she said, "Yeah, I saw the logo," and I'm like, "It can't be. This is the place." So she walked in, and they kept looking in here. So what I found neat about that is that the only place they've ever seen us is this,
Right.
doing the podcast like this with our stupid hats and shirts and stuff, and our table. And they were looking in while we were doing our podcast.
Yeah.
And so they met us they've met us the way they only ever have seen us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that is
So
cool.
it was kind of, I just thought that was kind of neat. So it was cool. And anyways, we showed them the stuff in here.
Yeah, they were from Kincardine too.
Yeah.
Up near Owen Sound.
Up by
Owen
Owen
Sound?
Sound area. Yeah.
That was what shocked me because we were just shooting the shit for a minute out there, and I figured like local team, like they've seen us on social media, that makes sense. Local, whatever. I didn't even think that's far, man. Owen Sound's pretty far. How far is that from here? 7? 6?
No. Well, probably 4, 3.
Oh,
yeah.
that's it?
I don't know. 8.
No. It's a 2-day trip.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea where it is.
Well, it's to get to Guelph is
it's
like
off,
let's say 3, and to get to Owen Sound is another 2.
but Owen
So
Sound
that's
is like
5.
up.
And yeah, so
the
it's
other way.
somewhere around.
I feel like it's
I would
5.
say it's 5 hours.
Okay.
Is that reasonable?
I don't know. I could just Google it.
Well, who gives a shit, really?
Well, while we're wasting time. Oh,
So-
it's not even 4 hours
Well,
from here.
see.
Wow.
So
That's
the
what mixed up.
son bought the program for your
Yeah.
son and working out. And he's loving it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
It's good stuff.
That's awesome.
Good note. Good note.
What do you have next?
You're gonna go next, and then I'm gonna go.
Okay, 2 things. It's the OHL finals right now. Love the fact that the finals are here in Windsor, and what I love is that place is jam packed.
Is it
So
jammed?
you haven't been to a finals game, right? So Charlie went the other night, and everybody that went, they said jam packed. Like there might be.
Oh, we did go.
Not the other
Not
night,
that one,
but the
one
other
before?
night.
Oh,
Yeah. Went to the game 1, and
Sick.
he said jam packed, and he said loud,
awesome.
and it's
Awesome.
just so nice to see. This town is a hockey town, man. It's awesome, and it's just good to see the arenas full like that again with the energy and all the restrictions are gone and people enjoying it. And hockey's great, and it's good for the Spitfires, good for Hamilton. They're great. Anyways, jam packed, tons of energy, awesome. So I like that. And then the last thing I wanted to say is Charlie and I were watching Tampa Rangers last night just for a period, and then we had to hit the fart sack after. Too tired. Can't watch it all, man. But I was showing Charlie, go look at Killorn, look at Nick Paul, look at I think it was Stamkos too. Just the stick work, not stick handling, but the way they disrupt plays. And we were just counting, and we're just looking at how many times it's getting sticks in lanes and just disrupting plays, and it was interesting to see. And that's what we talk about a lot of the time is when you're looking at a hockey player, what makes a hockey player good is those little things right there where when that guy's on the ice, he's just knocking pucks away. Nothing really totally flashy, but guys kind of breaking out and he's from behind and skating hard. And a lot of guys will think, okay, I got to catch him, right? And these guys knocking pucks away and disrupting every pattern that's out there. It was really nice when you watch those little details. It's really interesting. It's a different game to watch,
Oh
right?
yeah,
You're watching a whole different type of game rather than the beauty of it from the skill wise. You pulled out an article, 12 things that are highly debatable in hockey and stuff like that. And I thought most of them were just a marketing thing. But the one thing, ironically enough, was the top one was hitting from behind and the next one was fighting. So the hitting from behind is weird because
last few games there's been a few.
Yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
and honestly, man, they scare the shit out of me.
Yeah,
Like
they're
every
freaking
time
in.
when I see guys going in hard and a guy coming in, I honestly in a game, and I'm not even talking about my own kids that I know or my own kid. It's every kid. When I see a guy going in hard and I see a guy coming behind him, and I'm not sure if that kid's going to let up.
Yeah,
As I watch the game, my ass puckers up.
yeah,
I swear to God,
for sure, man.
because it's
freaky.
like so dangerous. And like Kadri got hit. Who hit him the other day? Or Kane did one the other night
Kane
too,
hit
right?
Kadri.
Kane hit Kadri.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a devastating, crazy one, but it was hard enough. And it's just a shit play, man. It's just so shit. So you're defenseless.
Yeah. Well, especially stories like we have had Sean Vanadam on where he's broke his ankle and you get these tragic things that happen, career enders, Achilles tears, broken tibias, like all this stuff is. All this stuff is it's tough to watch, man. So it gets scary, those types of plays.
Yeah, and so I say this like with the warning on like for the players and parents, if you talk to your kids, like teach that aspect of it, that when you're going in there, that you do not give that shove because it's so dangerous. And having said that, sometimes the emotions of the game, you're just playing and you think not too much, but it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah.
So like I hope it's not one of my son's my son or my son's teammate that does it accidentally, because you're going to feel like absolute garbage because you're going to actually hurt somebody. But it's like it scares me.
Yeah,
it's the one thing that scares me, and it's the one thing that, like, when you see the numbers and you're going in hard, guys, wrap your arms around them at least. Like, do something to cushion that, because it's bad. So that's the one thing that scares me. And then the next side is the fighting doesn't scare me nearly as much. But for the guy that's unprepared to ever get in a fight and get knocked out, it makes me a little bit nervous, but not the end of the world. So the debate is, do we ever get fighting out of hockey? And I don't know if that's the answer, because I think fighting in hockey, like, okay, so the reason I say fighting in hockey is getting rid of it is not the answer, is because where hockey originated, as we talked about in a podcast before. Like, because you'll hear comments. I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a percentage of people that would like fighting totally out of hockey, and some people would like the hitting eliminated and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's when you don't actually understand where the game came from. And I'm not trying to be a old school gorilla here, but the bottom line is, when hockey started, when we went and did that podcast and did a little bit of research, there's a rugby background behind it. Right, rugby on ice, and it's evolved into what it is now. But if you look at rugby, it was a rough game, right? So that's how it evolved, and there was fights and there was hitting all over the place. So it's tempered a bit, but I think that's part of the game. It's just the fabric of the game.
Yeah.
So and I actually like fighting in it at the appropriate time.
Right. Well,
I think it's important.
I was gonna say a couple things. First, just quick on the hit from behind thing. You said about the guy going in, but also for the guy going in to make the hit, but the guy also that's going in to get hit, you also have to be paying attention to how you're going into the boards too, right? And like you said, it's hard in the heat of the game. You forget that somebody's coming hot on your tail, but you have to learn and be taught how to brace yourself in those situations a little bit better. You don't want to be loose going into that situation, because it just takes that one little jab to the lower back. It's like you're going down and you don't know how you're going to hit, right?
No.
So that's freaky. But then the fighting thing, to me, it's more than just like where the game came from. It's what makes the game interesting. So I think people, when they talk about taking the physicality out, I don't think they realize what that does to the game and what it does to the reason you like to watch. And part of the reason you like to watch, whether you acknowledge it or not, is that there's a threat of violence in the game. And the more that you remove that, the less interesting that game becomes, because a lot of the decisions that guys make is going to be because they could get hit or because they could have to answer the bell or whatever. And even in junior hockey, how much they've limited the fighting, I'm not a big fan of
Neither am I.
either. And I'm not saying you don't cap it at a certain level, but it's just too low, because part of the game, those guys that have that element of their game, now they're capped and they have to restrict how they would play. So if you want to stop, if like maybe you can't have 35 fights a year because then you're fighting every other game or whatever, like I get that, but they should be confident enough when the time is right that they can fight without a more severe consequence of suspension or whatever, because it is part of the game. And to me, it's like guys that do UFC, like, what you're signing up for. Like, that's part of what you're signing up for. You're getting hit in the head. You're getting kicked in the head. Is it great that you get kicked in the head? No, but you're signing up for the sport. So that's just my opinion on it. If you're going to play a sport like hockey, a sport like football, rugby, you're going to go into fighting, boxing, whatever, it's part of the agreement when you go into it. If you don't want to get hit, if you don't want to have to get in a fight at some point, that's not the sport. You go play a different sport, and because it just really does affect the game. And for the people
can you imagine watching NFL with flag football?
Well,
you wouldn't.
And that's what I mean. You wouldn't watch it.
You wouldn't.
Right? You wouldn't watch it. And the reason
there's no guts, glory, blood, mud, and beer stories to talk about.
And it takes the competitiveness, and that's something we see a lot. Like some of the guys that went to the Spitz game the other night were saying it was just the first two periods, very uninteresting. And I found that a lot with a lot of the games that I went to see this year, because I went to quite a few. A lot of the time, it's very, very uninteresting. And something that makes people want to watch is, yeah, there wasn't any goals today, but did you see that hit? Did you see those two guys tee off on each other in the corner after that scrum or whatever? That's what makes it an interesting game to watch and makes you want to watch more. And that's whether you acknowledge it or not, because people are going to say, well, it could be just as interesting without the hits and without the fighting and whatever. And it's not true. It doesn't matter what you say or what you think is correct. It's just not true. If you take the threat of violence out of the game, it completely changes the dynamic of the game, and it will be less interesting to you.
I'm 1,000% on that.
Yeah, so
it's just not the game. Like that's like you said. I signed up for it as a 4-year-old, and there was body checking when I played. We didn't have face masks. That's how old I am. But we had to put a face mask on when I was in Adam, I think, and I cried. I don't want to wear this. That's not what hockey players do.
Yeah.
But that was part of it. Is you look forward to it. But and I do believe that when you grow up with the body contact in it already, that it's not an issue as you grow up.
I agree. Yeah.
So, like, for example, the kids that play lacrosse, my son, Potts on Charlie's team, like the kids that have done Grunder, all these kids that have played lacrosse, the body checking in hockey is natural. They just, it's not overused because it's just part of the game and you get bumped and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is you get into the Bantam, right? Or when did they put it? Bantam?
I feel like Bantam minor.
So what these kids do, they start licking their chops. I remember all the kids saying, "Oh, I can't wait to start hitting." And so your first couple games, it's just a slugfest of kids just trying to kill each other. Yeah. And I don't know if that's good. No, I understand the other side where you're not trying to hurt kids and keeping other kids safe, the smaller kids and all that, but I still would rather have hitting in it right from the beginning.
It's what you're signing up for, man.
It's hockey.
Go back to it's hockey.
It's not hockey till it is.
And it's better when they're younger. Again, in my opinion, it's better when they're younger for them to climatize to it when the force isn't as impactful, right? If you get run into by another 7-year-old, it might knock the wind out of you, it might knock you down, but the likelihood that when everyone's learning to skate, the likelihood that something catastrophic happens isn't very high. So you grow up figuring out how to keep your head up and how to handle guys bumping into you and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it's a better thing that they wait till later.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it too, you're talking about the face mask thing. And this is not to say, and what I'm not saying, you don't do certain things that would obviously prevent some injuries. Like for example, in junior, I don't like the rule necessarily, but I can understand it how everyone has to wear a cage now in junior. I get that.
Junior B,
if you're
right?
Not in the OHL. If you're not in the OHL, I kind of get that. You get a stick in the face and lose 8 teeth. Like, it's not really necessary. Makes it more difficult to fight, but we can talk about that one. That's one that's okay for me. But so there's common sense things. I'm not saying we want guys to go get hurt. I'm not saying you don't do things or like limiting the blindside hits and the high elbows and the jumping. All that stuff I understand because we're not trying to make people more hurt than they might be. But there should be a limit to what we're talking about. You know, you're not going to go to a UFC guy and say, okay, all you guys are wearing bubble wrap now for all the fights, so that's not sport now. Now we change the game. You know, so that's my, I don't know, last little 2 cents about the fight stuff too.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the other thing too that gets hard is in the heat of the game, like you said, when everyone's just going after it, like everyone's getting after each other, like going hard with whether it's the hits or the fights or whatever. It's hard to contain that too. So I can understand like the trying to impose some rules to make guys not get out of hand, especially when you're younger guys that are just crazy, like raging testosterone.
Yeah, you're like talking
puberty.
about 13-year-olds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and
Like
he's got hair in his every part of his body, and he wants to pick on the guy that hasn't hit puberty yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I get that.
So that's for sure safety. Yeah,
yeah, but when everyone's working real hard, it's tough. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the hard work thing too, before you go to your next one, because we were talking here the other day. Some of the guys were showing me some videos on social media of some guys that are showing, you know, the drills that they do and the skates that they have and all this kind of stuff, and they're impressive to watch to a certain degree, because some of the guys that they're showing, they're working really hard, and you can see, you know, you can always I tell the kids in here when they're working out, you can see intention. You know, you can see whether somebody's trying to go as hard as they can, or if they're just not giving it that last little bit. You can see it. And when I'm watching some of these videos that they're showing me, you can see the guys that are giving it, and you can see guys that aren't so much. Very easy to read. So they're showing me some videos, and some of the guys that they're showing me are just, you can tell they're giving it, and it's impressive to watch. And some of them are making comments about, you know, I was reading through some of the comments actually on one of the videos, and somebody was saying, man, like if this guy doesn't make it, or if this guy doesn't make it, like I've lost faith in hard work, you know, and that's a common thing that people think. There's hard work has a great rap, man. Like nobody ever says a word against working hard, because it's such a big component of getting to where you want to go. But
it is a necessary thing.
It's necessary
to work hard,
right?
Most of the time,
right? And what I want to talk about it a bit today, because people can get really gung ho about hard work and forget about other things that they need to do. So it's not just a given that if you work really hard, you get what you want. And
at all.
And that's a common, I think people think that, or can think that, like if you didn't make it, you didn't work hard enough, or if you're not getting what you want, you need to work harder. And it's not just the hard work. And I think it's really easy for people to default to thinking that it's only about hard work. If you work really hard, you will get what you want, and it's not true. It's just not true. It can be a big component. It can be really helpful and put you in the best position possible if you're somebody who works hard, but it's not just a given that if you're the hardest working guy, you're going to get to where you want to go, because it's a multi-variable situation. You need a lot of things going for you in the right way, whether that's your work ethic is obviously one thing, your skill level is another thing, your decision making is another thing, your timing is another thing. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that comes into the play for you when you're trying to be an athlete, particularly, but in anything really. And I don't want people to, because people say it all the time. I see it all the time. It's like, well, you need to work really hard, or it's the standard answer. Like if somebody is asking an NHLer, like, how did you get to where you want to go? And I'm like, well, you got to work really hard, man. You just got to keep working. You got to keep working. And that is true, and I agree with that. But there's not a lot of mention that goes to the other part of it. You know?
Yeah. So the thing is that you do have to work hard. That's the number one thing. But if you explain what is hard work, it's not going to be what you see on a lot of the YouTube or the, what do you call them? Videos?
Yeah, TikToks,
all that
whatever.
stuff. That's not what hard work is. That's a form of hard work.
Right.
That might not be, to me, that type of stuff. Well, let me just say this. I'll tell you what hard work is, right? Chopping down a big redwood tree. That's hard work.
Yep.
Especially if you do it with a ball peen hammer, right? And you could hammer at that thing for years and years and years, and then it may never come down, and it finally does. You just go, man, you worked your balls off. You should be really successful. When then some guy comes over with a chainsaw, and he does it in 3 seconds, that wasn't hard work, but you got the same job done.
Right.
So is the guy that hammered away for a couple of years with a ball peen hammer trying to knock a redwood down, is he a hard worker? Yeah, I would also say he might have oatmeal north of the eyebrows, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't the smartest, right? And it's the same thing as a business guy. Like, I'm an example of this. Okay, I used to sit there with my wife sometimes and I go, I work my balls off. I work my balls off. And why does a business thing maybe not go the way I want all the time? It's because you weren't working smart, man. You were working hard in the wrong spots. And that's, you don't know the game. Not the game of hockey, but you just maybe don't know the game. How about the guy that goes out there and works 3 jobs, right? And he puts every penny away, maybe hides it under his mattress and stuff like that. Then he sees a guy that makes $60,000 a year for 10 years have more money than him and a more successful life. And he sits there and goes, I'm working hard, man. Like I'm working so hard. How can this guy have more? Well, this guy probably saved his money, invested into something that would make him more so that his money makes him money. Whereas you're taking it and you're putting away. Yeah, you're working hard, but it's not an effective way of working.
That's right.
And I'm not saying that I'm any better than anybody, but that's the reality of it. So when I get frustrated when people say hard work with hockey, like in those terms, because I've seen some of the people that do the YouTube thing, like when I see or those TikToks, whatever, when I see the drills on there, like when they do come up or when someone shows me, I get bored in 2 seconds because I look at it like, if you're becoming, like if it's trying to be a hockey player, like if you can look at it, everybody's doing the same thing. Like it's a variation of the same thing. You got 10 pylons and this turn, this thing, a quick hands, a tight turn, and these made up on the fly stuff that you're going to practice over and over. Is it bad? No, it's not bad. Would I base my whole hockey career on that? Absolutely no.
Yeah.
So the hard work, if you're going to put that kind of work in, it's basically before you chop the redwood down, right? If it's going to take you 3 hours, take 2 hours to sharpen the axe.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go and do some training and try to develop as a hockey player, there has to be some intention. So doing all kinds of drills as fast as you can, as hard as you can, with zero hockey patterns or really defining like how you're shooting the puck when you get to the end of that, or how you're shifting your weight, or making it something to do with hockey, not just skating around all over the place looking like and getting tired and doing it real fast. Mm-hmm. There's no point,
right?
Except when you're younger and you just want to get ice and reps. That's okay.
Yeah.
Or even for the older guys, you want to do something where we're going to hang on to the puck as much as you can, do all this kind of stuff and a lot of reps and stuff. Yeah, it's okay. But if someone does that and just works hard every day at that stuff, they're not improving any of their hockey IQ skill, like what I mean in skill and understanding the game. So to me, hard work would be, what do I need to work on, and work on it. That's hard work and focus, right? And then you have like, oh, I fixed this one thing and I'm good at it, or I'm this type of a player. Like so people that do those really, whatever you call it. I'm not cutting it up, by the way. I'm just saying whatever those fancy drills are, that's fine. But if you can take that work ethic that you can go hard and whatever, and take it and shrink it down into what am I good at, and put that effort in, it might be penalty killing or whatever, and then just really focus on that hard work, then you give yourself a chance. So I've heard a lot of parents say that the kid works so hard. It's like, well, yeah, but
that's only one piece.
But man, it doesn't matter.
Right. It doesn't matter.
And the other side of it is that there are many times that it'll frustrate. Okay, so I was thinking about this morning when you mentioned that yesterday. So I have a player that plays in the OHL that skates with me, and I worked with his team a couple years ago before he was drafted, and he was supposed to be like a high-end first-round pick, right? So I went to the coach after. I said, "That's him." He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Like, does he care? Does he even care?" Like, as I did a whole bunch of a very good player, did a whole bunch of practices and skill stuff for him. He goes, "Well, I don't know, man. It just seems like he doesn't." So I told the coach after, who's a good friend of mine, I'm going out for dinner with him this week. I said, if that's how he's going to work, is he's not making it anywhere. Like it pisses me off, but that's me. So anyways, this kid gets drafted first round high, plays really good, and went to an NHL camp last year, and he's really good. He doesn't have to work hard because he's just really good. And but it's, for him, practice, he goes through the motions. He does it because he has to. He doesn't see it. He doesn't get it. Like, will it be a limiting factor at one point?
Could be.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. But in a game, he does his job very, very well. And he does it very, very hard. And then he's able to park it.
Right. Yeah.
So if you look at him, that's not fair. No, but that's what you call talent.
Yeah. Well, that's the reality. And
talent.
This is what I'm talking about. This is the other half of the equation is the smarts part and the talent part, and that stuff a lot of times gets left out when people talk about it. You just need to work hard. It's like, yeah, you need to work hard, but you also need to be smart and you also need to be good, right? And that's the thing that I find is lacking in the conversation when you start to talk about hard work things. It's the other part of it is you need that part. If you just work hard, that means nothing. That means nothing. You know, I really like the chopping the tree down analogy. It's like if you go crack at the base of a tree with a hammer until you knock it over, should you be a master lumberjack? No, you're not. You're not actually good at it. You're not good at chopping the tree down. You just work really hard. You know, and I think that analogy plays well with hockey. It's like if you can go through the drills or be a practice player really well, but you're not good at the actual activity that you're trying to practice for, do you actually deserve to be in that elite group of people that gets to say that they're a hockey player for a living? You don't. You're not actually good at the activity. You know?
Right.
So it's
I can work hard at singing all I want.
Exactly.
All by myself and think I'm good.
Yeah. Well, but that's what people are getting from or missing when they're watching these videos, right? You're seeing some of these guys. It's like, man, they're going hard. And I don't know if you've seen the Pavel Barber guy.
Yeah.
On social media.
Yeah, kids love it.
I don't know anything about this guy, so I'm not talking any smack about him or anything.
Yeah.
But he's one of these guys that looks like he does a bunch of fancy cone drills and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, it's fine. But what did he? I don't know if he played. Did he play pro?
Apparently no. No.
So So he's good at all his skills.
Oh yeah, he's a short little guy that
he can weave,
zip
he can
around
skate well,
and flip pucks. And it's all cool.
Why didn't he play?
Until Arbor Jack guy takes a hold of it, takes
right?
his head and rams it through the freaking glass and leaves his teeth on the 18 teeth on the ice, and then that doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work, and we try to point this stuff out all the time about game applicable skills and how to be good in the actual game. And I don't want when people talk about hard work, because like we were talking about in here yesterday, that's why I wanted to talk about it today. It's like don't get lost in the idea of working hard, thinking that it's enough that you work hard. Because it's not enough that you work hard.
It's not enough because you got guys like Eric Wellwood. We talked about this before. Eric Wellwood, just go through the wall. Aaron Ekblad, Dalton Proud, all these guys.
Yeah.
You can go do your absolute best and work hard for 10 years, and they'll go out there with a pair of rubber boots and beat you.
Yeah. That's exactly what sport is. That is what sport is. Some guys they got the V10 engine and you got a V8 and they're just better. Yeah. And that's you can do all the hard work you want. But so I wanted to point that out before we keep going here because it kind of is going to play into what you're going to talk about next. But it's very, very important when you're talking about hard work, whether you're coach, mom, dad, player, don't think that hard work is enough. It's got to be hard work. It's got to be smart work, and you got to be good. It's those three pieces. If I had to break them into three categories, it's like the hard work piece is important, but the smart work piece is also extremely
important.
Yeah, and then just being good enough to a certain degree.
Having a base level to get you in the door so you can kick it open with the one thing you do better than everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's the thing, right? If you do all this under the stick, through the pylon, jumping through hoops and all that stuff, and you do it really fast, that's great. But how do you apply that to the game? What does that make you good at?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, that's the moral of the story. That's all I want to bring up before you go into your next part.
Yeah, so the next part I just want to say that kind of ties in ironically is I was listening to the podcast the other day on Ryan Leaf. He was a quarterback, you remember Ryan Leaf?
I don't know.
Okay, so he was like it was between him and Peyton Manning. Okay, so he was talking about how he blew his career right from the combine. So, and then we're going to talk about the NHL Combine a little bit after. So he said that when he went to the Combine, he was just a talented guy, and it was like him or Peyton Manning, and it was him. That's the guy. So he went to the Combine, didn't really pay attention to it, showed up 40 pounds overweight, 6'6". He came in at 268 or something like that. And he was 40 pounds overweight, didn't do one thing to get prepared for it, and didn't actually care. Missed a meeting with one of the teams, and he said, I don't want to play there anyways. That was his attitude, right? So now listen, I don't know the guy. I just remember when he was there, and it was like, because I watched some football, not a ton. I like it, but I don't sit there on Sundays and have chili and freaking nachos and watch football all day, right? I enjoy it though. So anyways, he got drafted and second overall to the San Diego Chargers. Supposed to be like one of the best guys ever. So the bottom line with that is He made a ton of mistakes. A ton of mistakes. Ended up after his career of maybe, I don't know, 8 years or something like that of shuffling around, being a horrible teammate. And I'm not. All I know is that what I heard about him, and he talks about it. So I'm not saying like he's a goof because I think so.
Yeah, you don't know him.
I don't
What's
know
the name
him.
again?
Ryan Leaf.
Ryan.
Okay, so he made a ton of mistakes, had some injuries, and ended up in prison.
Jesus.
Not because he was all that bad, because he got with his injuries and stuff, got on the Percocets and the drugs, and he actually what he was saying in this interview is that he knew some couples that had Percocets or Vicodin. Is that what they're called?
Vicodin, yeah.
And he knew they were gone, and he knew he could get in their house and take the Vicodin, but they came home as he was doing it, and he got. I think that was the one that got him in prison for breaking an entry.
Wow.
So that's how, and so he went broke. He was blah blah blah, all the bad stuff. Blamed everybody for, if the team wasn't doing well and it was his fault, it was everybody else's fault and all that kind of stuff, right? So that was him. So failed physicals and all that stuff. Career ends.
4 years, by the way.
4 years. Okay, so
Yeah,
in
4
and
years.
out. First, second overall, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So between him and Peyton Manning, what's the difference? So he was talking about. He goes like, what he didn't understand is that when you went to the combine, or when you become an athlete, and I would say this: don't just wait until you're maybe getting drafted to the National Hockey League. I would say if you want to be a hockey player or if you want to be a businessman, we talked about this. Treat this business like it's a multi-billion-dollar business already, so that if and when it does happen, you're already a professional, right? You set your brand up. So that's what he said. He goes, you're your own CEO. That's what I always called you Inc. You're your own company, right? So you're your own CEO, and you're your own brand. And when does it start? Right? It starts. It should start now.
Yeah.
Should start now, whatever age you are, right? So he went to there, did not really knowing that, like he just or didn't care about it or whatever. Okay, and then he said, and then when you do that, you invest in your brand, because what you're doing is like reality is, if you're a second overall NFL quarterback, you're making money unless you blow it like this guy did. If you're a guy that's going to play in the NHL, especially a high pick, you have an opportunity not just to make your money in hockey, but you have opportunities all over the place. I look at Aaron, some of the things that he gets. I think the guys come back into town, right? And the Ford dealership or whatever dealership where they've come from, they say, when you get into town, just so you can have a vehicle. Like it's free cars, right? There's all kinds of other opportunities. So when you walk into a combine or when you walk into anywhere, you're actually representing your company, and that brand is as big as you want it to be, or as small as you want it to be, or as goofy as you want it to be, or unprofessional as you want it to be, or professional as you want it to be, right? So understanding that's why I'm so adamant on the kids, not because I want them to have clean cut hair, but I tell my son, your hair's sticking all over your head. Doesn't matter to me. But always know someone's watching you. If you walk around moping and all that stuff, someone's watching you. You're your own CEO. You're the guy that runs the ship. You are your brand, and people want to invest in people that they like, trust, and that shit, right? So he goes. The next thing, that another mistake that he made when he signed his first contract. So what did he do in San Diego? I was down there a couple years ago. La Jolla, which is just like 40 minutes outside of San Diego. It's La Jolla Beach. Unbelievable. So beautiful. So he went and bought a big mansion on the beach. And he goes, worst thing an athlete can do. Because what happens when you buy a big, comfortable house? You'd never want to leave on the ocean, right? You never want to leave. So he goes, that was the worst mistake, one of the worst mistakes he had. Because as an athlete, the last thing you want to do is stay at home. What you want to do is you get yourself a place close to the arena or the stadium, whatever you call it, where you work out every day, and get there and get to work. He goes, there's a big difference in that, because if you get your career as one contract, it's not enough money. It's just a good start, right? So that's what he said: is you get to work and spend time eating the right way, being around the right people, and practicing and honing your skills. So that was another one. And then he said it's just all about getting better, and that's the part that he forgot. He said he thought he made it, but he said, and so to our point earlier about talent, he goes, so the next part is that when you get to junior, you get drafted, you get to junior, you get to pro, you had talent, but guess what? Everybody is talented. Everybody is you, minimum, right? Everyone's a first, second round pick, pretty much. Or if they're not, they work like their life absolutely depends on it. So
Yeah.
you're against
They
people
work
that
to
have
make up the difference.
right.
That's for sure.
They have that work ethic that's can be unmatched. Can't be unmatched. Can be unmatched. It can't be unmatched.
Can't be
Whatever
matched.
the sentence is,
Yeah.
that's what it is. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what you're dealing with. He goes, so the next part of that is once you make it, it's not about making it, it's about playing for the next thing. It's playing for the next contract. It's playing for a next goal, or else you're going to lose it. And he said it's the deal is to get better every single day. And if you have anything other than that, it doesn't work out unless you're just. But he was super talented. So so to go back like 100 of our episodes, even though we haven't done 100 yet, to go back to all our episodes, some of the people say, well, yeah, they all drink and they all do this. They just party. No, that you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. Super
Especially
athletes
today, man.
right at that top 1%, and the 1% of the 1%, you have to be dialed in. Period. And you hear pros talk about that all the time. So,
Yeah. So I just maybe dialing back a little bit to some of the younger guys, because I want to give like a good frame for some of the kids that listen too, and then I mean the parents and coaches and stuff that listen, they'll get hopefully the same kind of message out. But the earlier that you can get on the be a professional train, the better. So for the kids that for in hockey, you get your first opportunity of getting drafted is when you're 15, 16. If you miss that, it's not the end of the world. It's not the most important thing ever, but there's a lot of opportunities that come just because you got that first milestone. So going into your OHL draft year or anything around that age, in the States, going to school, you're a little bit older, so you have a few more years. But if you can just dial in enough where somebody notices you at that point, the doors that open up to you and the amount that people want to help you and give you extra, it's just the nature of the beast, because people see potential in you, goes through the roof. So that gap, that's why you get that gap, that separation after draft year, where the guys that got noticed or ended up making a junior team or whatever, the separation between them and all the guys that they played minor midget or U16 with starts to go over those next 2-3 years, because those guys got a bunch of opportunities now that those other kids didn't necessarily get, where they were on the same level the whole way. They separated themselves just enough to get noticed more than their teammates, and then boom, over the next 2-3-4 years, they're getting way more. And we got a guy in here right now who had that opportunity this year, and now in here he's getting all kinds of attention more from us because he's at a level where he's like, man, this kid's actually got some potential. Like he's worth really investing some time and attention into, and that's because he's earned that. And so if you can get yourself to start to dial in on that sooner than later, especially at a younger age in hockey, because you get judged so young, if you can just get yourself to get on that train, if it's something you actually want, which is really, really difficult to do when you're young because you can't see it yet, you're going to get yourself into a situation where doors are flying open for you. And you won't even know it. You won't even understand. Like the one kid I'm thinking about, he doesn't even know what's going on right now, man. He's just like, man, this guy, I'm getting this thing. I got to go to this camp. This guy's talking to me now. I get to work out with these guys. And it's like he wouldn't have had that if he didn't just dial in a little bit. If he was a little bit later, he'd be in the same pool as the rest of the kids. And not everybody can get that attention. So if you can separate yourself a little bit early, you get that attention. Do you look like you got something to say?
I was just thinking, like because you said something about it's hard for kids to get it when they're young, and that's 100% true. But this is where I feel this what this podcast is all about. Is about, okay, so the kids absolutely at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 might not get it. But this is where we come in to ensure that the coaches and parents are doing their due diligence. And it's not like, you've seen me how I am with Charlie. It's not, don't wear a hat, you look stupid, start growing up. That doesn't go well. But it's, if I can't say it, someone else in my surroundings will, and I ensure that he's around good people. And there's nothing wrong with, if you're a parent, to ask the coach, can you just talk to him for a second about a couple things? Can you have the haircut talk? Can you have the don't pull your pants down halfway down your ass talk, right? With kids do, because if you do that as a parent, that's going to be, yeah, I'm never cutting my hair because you said so. But if you can present it, so if you're a parent, you can eliminate the barriers when you're speaking to your kids, and just say to them, when people are looking at you, because I know you have big goals. Now you've taken their dreams and you put it in front of them. You're not telling them what to do. You're saying you want to get drafted. Is that something that you want to do, or you want to get, you have goals of going somewhere? Oh, that's good, and you throw that in front of them because now it's their idea. Okay, so you have goals if you want to get drafted in the OHL. That's awesome. Like, hey, you know what? Since you're getting drafted, your draft's a year away or 2 years away. One of the things that the scouts, they start looking early. Like, you never know where they're going to be looking. So if you walk around, some of the kids that are walking around and they look like they're the lead singer for Quiet Riot or whatever. I don't know what the groups are anymore, right? Twisted Sister or something like that.
Riot.
No, but if you look around looking like you sell drugs on the side, then that's the first impression, son. And you always want to make a good first impression. It's like you could be the nicest kid in the world, you could be the most talented person in the world, but when they see something that looks off, like you're the kid at school that's the cool guy, or your pants are halfway down your ass, and they judge that and go, maybe this kid doesn't have it together. That's what they see. So it's up to you. It's up to you, son. But if you think that if you want to get to the next level, it's just a small sacrifice now to clean up the hair. I'm not talking about wearing a blue suit every day. I'm just talking about wearing some decent stuff. You can still be cool, right? Or you can wear hack backwards. You still can do that. But like, just clean it up so that you don't look like it looks like you care about yourself. So if the Windsor Spitfires happen to bump in, you say that's a good player. Oh, that's that kid. Wow, impressive kid. Not that's that kid. Oh wow, that's looks like a mess. So little things. So coaches, that should be a talk every year, right? And not to be the asshole, but just to say this is and bring a scout in from a team and just say this is some of the things that are important. If you want to have this, these are some of the things that are important. We're always watching. Right. And that's how I said raising my son. It was so easy, or so far has been so easy to keep him between the lines because his dream was here. Do you want this? Yeah. So here's some things. Or talk to Eric about this. Talk to Dalton about this. And it's like, yeah, clean that up, do this. Oh, okay. And it's their idea because it's their dream.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is what the people say that are judging you too. They say the same stuff. It's not made up stuff. Another thing, just to defend my own point earlier, is with the kids being young and it's hard to understand. The interesting point, the thing that I've noticed is they ask the questions. It's not that they don't want it, And so if the reason that some of them don't dial in is a lack of information or a lack of knowledge, that's a shame. And that's the point of what we're trying to do with the podcast. It's like getting the information, because if that's the reason that they didn't, is just because they didn't know any better, that's a shame.
Or mom and dad were too lazy to deal with it.
All that plays into it though. And a lot of parents, what I find is a lot of parents don't know the information either. And that's part of the point as well. It's try to shuffle it to them because they ask the questions. They'll do the things. Like I'm having the young group that we have in here, talking to them about food all the time. All of them are having cereal and a protein shake for breakfast now. Like, what a great improvement. Like, awesome. Good for you guys. That means you're actually starting to pay attention. It's not about the cereal and the protein shake. It's about the fact that you're starting to pay attention to what you're doing. That is what the important thing is, And so if they miss that just because they didn't hear it, that's awful. And that's what you want to try to avoid. So it's the reason that I say, it's difficult for them to understand because they're young. It's not because they don't want to understand it or they're not going to pay attention to it. They want it, man. Most of the kids I have in here have made noticeable strides to improve what they're doing, whether it's workout on the ice, at home. The guys that are consistent,
for sure.
The guys that are here the majority of the time and they don't miss workouts, they don't miss skates. Those kids that you can see that they have some desire, those kids they'll make the modifications. They'll try to the best of their ability, even if they don't fully understand exactly how to do things or whatever. They try to do it. So,
dude, it's 100%, and it goes back to your environment and who you hang out with. I'm the biggest believer in that. Right? You show me a guy on the team that you hang out with, like for example, you get to junior, you talk. If you hang out with the guy with the most body fat on the team, you're probably going to add some yourself, especially if he's driving you, because you're making pit stops along the way. And there's a point where environment wins, right? It's a big discipline. So just going back on that, it's parents and coaches. This is the thing is, coaches, you have a responsibility. You don't have to be the best X's and O guys. There's a quote out there or something I've seen several times that a coach will have a bigger impact in a child's life in a short period of time than a parent will. And I don't know if that's true, but it can be a good coach. And I don't, that's what, in sports, hockey, whatever, your coach, you don't have to be X's and O's and teach them everything about hockey, because that's probably the most irrelevant thing.
Well, you talk about Mr. Rose.
Yeah, I
Think
talk about
that.
him to this
How much?
day.
How much?
I love this
How long
man.
was he your coach for? A few years.
4 years.
4 years.
4
right?
years.
That's a blink of the eye.
Yeah.
And it's like, this guy is stuck in your head. You're
Yeah.
53, and
Yeah.
you still talk about Mr. Rose.
Mr. Rose. I got athletic. I got being an athlete from him, with the training, how he was ahead of the time, how he's a good person, how he cared about me. Yeah. And if I disappointed Mr. Rose, I'd be very disappointed in myself. So I thought that was, anyways, the point is, mom and dad, it's okay to sit down with your kids, point things out. If you don't give them shit, but hold the dream up, or ask them what they want to be, and start going towards that goal. Yeah. Doesn't mean they have to part their hair to the side and, wear polo shirts every day. It's just tighten it up, look presentable, act presentable, and coaches, it's your responsibility. It is. Why are you coaching, man?
Yeah, and the last thing you said there, I wanted to just highlight again is, let's say you do all that, and then you get your opportunity, you get drafted or picked for a team or whatever. It's very important that you don't think you made it now. That's you're talking about, you become a professional, and Dalton said it, we've said it before, it's like you're sprinting as fast as you can to stay in the same place. And that's a very important thing, because that's something I see a lot too. You get some of these kids that dial in, and they get an opportunity, and then they think, oh, okay, I did it, I'm here. If you're fortunate enough to be playing on an OHL team, a lot of kids, that's where it dies right there, because they think, I'm here, I did it, now I'm a hockey player, I'm going to be a pro, I'm going to go to the NHL now, I'm going to make the big bucks, all that kind of stuff. And that they think that that's a reason that they can take their foot off the gas, because they think they're there, and you're not there, and you're almost never there. You're almost never there. Even when you're a professional, you're still not there, because like you said about the quarterback guy you were talking about, Ryan Leaf.
Ryan Leaf, yeah.
You get there, you think you're there. It's like, you got to keep pushing now. You need the next thing that you're trying to play for. So it's just, even when you're there, you're not there. There's always the next thing. That
there's
keeps
so many
you rolling.
good people. There's so many, like you said, everyone's talented.
Yeah,
everyone's talented. You're so replaceable. I've said that to so many players. Like, I've said it to Charlie. I've said it to players that I've trained so many times. It's like, when I talk to their parents, I go, hey, do you remember we had a few beers the other night? Remember the third one you had? Do you remember that third beer? And they go, no. I go, what do you mean? Like, it was your third beer. Remember? You can't remember? They're like, no. What are you talking about? I go, that's what a hockey player is. You're just another next. The fourth one was good. Second one was good. With third one, I don't remember. Oh yeah, that guy. That's all hockey is. This one's done. I need a new one. And so if you're not cold and full, who cares?
Yeah, that's right. That's right, man.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
it is what it is. So that's why you got to stay on it.
You want to go to the combine stuff now?
Sure. Well, this kind of led into that, eh?
I know everything blended pretty well today.
Well, I guess your brain gets on a wave, right?
Yes. Sometimes the segues can be difficult, but
yeah, it kind of segues into. I think it's a wavelength that we're on. So anyhow, hey Pops,
what's up, Pops?
So, anyways, it's the NHL Combine time, so I always find that a little bit interesting, because obviously a lot of our kids are playing with guys that are into it and stuff like that. So I find it interesting, but I find it interesting probably for a lot of different reasons. So for me, the Combine. Well, what is the NHL Combine? So the Pops waved at me. He thinks if he says something out loud, I'll go up and beat him. The NHL Combine is it's an invite only of the top prospects, more or less.
Is it 65?
I think it's 65. I think this year was 63. Let's say 70. Okay, I'm not going to be exact. Let's say 70 guys, the top prospects, who are so that's about 2 rounds. Yeah, it's about 2 rounds. So it's about 2 rounds. 2 rounds of guys, right? And what it is there's a 10, 12 different fitness tests. And then there's they get interviews done, right? So in the fitness tests, they have stuff like standing long jump. They have the wind gate. They have aerobic capacity on bikes. They have bench press. They have pull-ups. They have wingspan, height, weight, body fat. They have
Y balance
the
test,
shuttle. What's that?
pro agility,
Yeah,
Y test,
yeah,
all this stuff.
yeah, all those different tests, and so they at the end of the day they give you scores and they get an idea of what the athlete looks like. Could be a good day, could be a bad day. For some people it might look like, oh, there's a lot of potential there. For some people it might be like, oh my god, this guy's dog shit, right? Like as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the second part of that is interviews. So it's a chance for them to get to know players, right? So they sit down and find out, tell me about yourself and all this kind of stuff. So that's like the gist of the combine. So to me, what it really is a marketing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
marketing tool. But now,
Yeah.
so how many guys here listening are going to be at the NHL Combine? Probably not a lot.
Mm.
Okay, so is this relevant to you? Yeah, it is, because in the OHL level, there's still fitness testing. There's interviews. College, there's fitness testing, interviews. There's combines of different sorts at different levels. And the point of it is that it's a place where, and you can decipher whether it's a bunch of horseshit or if it's actually good for you. Well, if you're drafted somewhere, if you're ranked somewhere in the top 2 rounds in the NHL, you're not going to take it lightly. I can tell you that, because it's number one, it's your first chance to make a first impression live, right? They've seen you play hockey, obviously, but now it's a chance for you to actually. So again, you walk, not again, because I didn't say it. So when you walk into the combine, it's right. How's your hair? Like some guys don't think of it, right? How's your hair? What are you wearing? Right? Stuff like that. So that's one impression. It's how you act, how you walk around, and not to put an act on, but it's how do you do this? Because now you got 32 teams plus how many guys on every team watching every step that you make, and every time you do something good or impressive, that might be a tick for the good. It might be, well, you should be, and every time you do something a little bit negative, it's like, I don't like that. So you try to eliminate all the negatives. So are the fitness tests? To me, are the fitness tests a real indication of what type of player you are, and is it that important? And I say yes and no. Okay. Do you want anything right now?
I can go, but if you still want to keep going, go.
I'll just go for
Yep.
like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So what I mean by yes, it's important is because, again, first chance to make a good impression.
It's an opportunity. Yeah.
It's an opportunity. Another good thing is that if you have done work, it shows that you have been prepared. It's just that you show up and prepare for the testing, right? So it shows that you've done something over a long period of time, which is good. That to me shows that you have a lot of good habits. It can show your potential, and it could also show, well, it shows your dedication. Where I think it's irrelevant is because, let's say you finished the playoffs 7 days ago and you had a good long hard run and you're beat up to go, and you haven't, and especially this year with the COVID, where like, so with in the OHL, they had a couple breaks, then they were playing almost every second night. Well, your body is not primed for working out, right? So a lot of kids were beat up. Whereas on the other hand, another kid might have been fresh as a daisy for a month because they didn't make the playoffs, right? So like, for example, from Saginaw, Pavel Minchikov, he went there and they had some time off, right? Maybe heal up, maybe even get ready for it. So he's in a better physical condition, or he was able to prepare as opposed to whatever. The other side is that on the physical side is like, does it really matter if you can do a pull-up? Does it really matter that you're bench pressing hard? Absolutely not. Because if you can play hockey, that's the most important thing. And then the other side is that someone that is doing really well in the fitness testing, just as in hockey, if you're physically more mature and you have been working out and you've had trainers and all these different advantages, then you're going to have probably a better fitness test than a kid that came from, Puce. And he doesn't have a trainer, he doesn't know, didn't have the money. Like, he's just a good hockey player and he's not really physically mature yet. And he gets, he struggles to get a pull up, and his bench press is like pretty bad. Doesn't make him a bad hockey player, because so there's floor and ceiling with the fitness testing. And at the end of the day, it's better that you do well, but at the end of the day, again, it's not the end of the world at all.
Yeah, that's something I found. Kids can get really caught up on the fitness testing thing, and I used to too. Like I remember going into camps, fitness testing is like a big deal, and I always took a lot of pride in always being at the upper end of the
For
fitness testing,
sure.
right? And that's good. That's a good thing. That's fine.
For sure.
But the two things that I want to highlight about the combine of any sort is for a lot of teams, if you're being scouted, this is the first time that coaches and general managers, whoever scouts, will get to see you out of your equipment. And that's something that's actually important because it's hard to tell sometimes on the ice. If you're trying to gauge a kid's potential, how much growth he has, what his stature is like, you need to see him out of his equipment. So we had a kid that started working out yesterday. I didn't realize how big of a kid this kid was. Yeah, big boy. I've seen him play several games, and I never really realized how big he actually was. I'm like, holy, like this, he's a big boy. Got some meat on him, nice wide frame, like that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. Outside of the actual metrics, the other part to your point at the end there is in a sport like hockey, performance metrics in terms of like your physical abilities aren't the most important thing. So if you're somebody who does like shot put, for example, there's a very high correlation between how much you can bench press and how well you can shot put. In hockey, there isn't really any measurable metric like that that will indicate to a high degree what kind of hockey player you are. If you can jump really far, that might say some things about your skating ability or how much power you can generate. But what does that mean in terms of your ability to play hockey well? It doesn't, there's not a lot of correlation you can draw between one fitness metric. So in some sports, it's different than others, right?
Yeah, football, they do the 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
If it's not in a certain area, then you have zero chance.
You won't be a wide receiver.
Not a chance.
Yeah, right? So there's not that same level of correlation between some of those things. So in other sports, I think the combine stuff ends up being more significant, more important. You know, if you're a basketball player, your high jump actually matters. So that kind of stuff, it's different depending on the sport. But for hockey in particular, what you score on each of these tests doesn't correlate directly with your performance on the ice necessarily. Like you said, always better to do better. But is it something that's going to ruin you? Last week gave the example, I think, of Sam Bennett did no pull-ups at the combine, went 4th overall because he's good at hockey. So it's not the end all be all. Better to do better. But the other part of it that I was going to mention too is
And then how much does that help your actually hockey training if you're preparing for the test? Yeah. Yeah. It's funny though, just from the other side of it is you could take I think I used this on you the other day, but then it becomes tricky with these test results. So if you take a kid that is in really good shape and you sit down with the Dallas Stars now and they say, okay, but we see that you really crushed the fitness test here. It's good, but it's like, I think if I'm talking to you, like it's a trick question almost. Like I think that maybe your physical potential were at the ceiling instead of the floor. Whereas I think this kid over here he hasn't had the fitness that you've had. And once he gets in shape, I think maybe he'll be able to compete with you. So why should we take you? Right? And to me, the answer would be like there's different answers. It could be a very true statement, but it also could be like if that was asked to me, my answer would be, well, because I've done the work for 4 years, that guy hasn't, and I know what it takes, and I do it every day when I didn't have to. So if I've done it for the last 4 years, I'm going to do it for the next 8, or it's my life. That's what I do every day. I don't feel good unless I actually work out. So there's so many convoluted things
Well,
with
well,
this,
and
right?
that gets to the more towards the interview stuff when you actually get to talk to some of these teams, right? Where that's where you really can make the difference because that's right. If you got little Griff in here who's barely knocking on puberty's door right now, and you got Grizzly Beard Man that's had a beard for 4 years, well, are we measuring the same thing? It's like we're not really measuring the same thing. It's like you crushed the fitness testing, but this kid he's only had testosterone for 3 months, so maybe he needs a little bit more time, and he still did decent at the fitness test or something, right? So like these are the types of thoughts that some of these people judging you are going to have, right? So yeah, that's that. But once you get to the actually talking to the teams, that's where you can really make the ground up.
Yeah. So going back to the fitness part is like, and it's an attitude thing too, because if I go straight to where I go with so how I think is when I think NHL Combine, I know like I always try to see through shit, and I can see that okay, number one, marketing. Number two, it's a way for NHL teams to really get their players, like those top players, interviewed. It's a one easy location.
Yep.
Again, marketing. There's all kinds of sponsors and stuff like that, and it's TSN and it's all that stuff, and it's that's to me what it is. So you could just look at that, and say, I got to do this shit, this no good for nothing fitness testing, and that's not really the best attitude because that's one area that you're gonna have to do this. You're gonna have to do it at camp, right? So some teams when you go to camp or the mini camp or rookie camp or development camp or main camp is they put you through paces. A lot of teams like to the point where it's like stupid. Actually,
Yeah.
If you talk to 90 out of 100 hockey players or 99 out of 100 hockey players will say, I don't know what the point of bagging us was. Tearing someone's groins out and just absolutely ruining them for the next month just to see if they're in shape. Right? It's actually pointless. But the point of the attitude check though is you have to do it anyways. So yeah, you might as well go into these situations and do your best and be prepared because it doesn't have to make sense to you. It just is what it is, and you're gonna get a lot of that as a hockey player. So when you go into the fitness test, it's like, all right, I'm gonna care about my pull-ups. I'm gonna care about these things. I'm gonna care about my mobility when no one's around because there's a test for that. Right. So it just shows you some preparedness, and it's just good to make a first impression.
Yeah, and it's good to test yourself on it too. That's the other thing in preparation.
Pressure situation as well.
Yeah, right. So if like forget the guys now that they're getting a little bit older now, we're doing testing stuff on them in here, and that's just something else to keep you motivated. If you know a test is coming, it's something that'll help to keep you motivated and committed to whatever the plan is that you have in place for yourself for in terms of off-season training or when you're away from the rink or whatever. Something that can keep you accountable. This day is coming, so I got to make sure I'm ready for this day. Whether that's an actual combine thing or like we're doing our first one on Saturday with our guys, they all know it's coming, and I know the feeling. Right, it's not a big deal. Right, as the trainer, I'm sitting here like I don't actually really care that much about what any of the numbers are. I'm just trying to get a baseline. But for these guys, thinking they're like, oh, I got fitness testing on Saturday. I got to be ready for fitness testing on Saturday or whatever, right? So it ends up being something that keeps you accountable too. So whether it's a test from the combine or testing yourself, that's just a good thing to do is have some kind of performance metric you're tracking, if for nothing else, just to make sure you're accountable to something. Something's coming. As you said before, playing for the next thing. There's your next thing through the off season. You got a test coming.
It's funny with the kids when they go to their first camp, they go like, how do I get, how am I going to do on the development camp? Like they ask about the testing, what's the on ice? Like, am I going to be ready? And it's like, I will never tell them this before they go, but it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're 16 or 15 or 17 and you go to camp. It's just to show you what their organization's all about. And when they do a fitness test, it's just to take numbers and to say, oh, okay, so impressive. The guy did pretty good. Oh, he's got a pretty good body. But you're 16,
right?
You could go in there a little fluffy and you eat like you eat clean and it's like, well, you're still a fluffy kid.
Yeah,
you're gonna shape up, right? So my point of this, at the end of the day, when whatever level that you are and you do these tests, do your best. Always do your best. How you do anything is how you do everything. Do your best. But don't stew on the fact that your squats were less than this guy and this guy. There's all kinds of variables here, and no. But another good thing is you get to see where other guys are at, and you can say, oh, I got a long way to go, or I'm doing pretty good as of right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so that's one thing. So anything else?
Nope.
And then the interview part, we've talked about this several times, is always be ready for an interview. That's what we say about cutting your hair, knowing answers, don't sound like a dummy, because that's what the combines are a lot about, right? You can, I think it's a lot more. I think when you go to a combine or those things, I think it's people can get a lot more of how you speak, how you act, what your thought process are than you're going to get out of any fitness test.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I think it turns into like a way to gauge your professionalism or gauge your character, like those types of things, which everyone knows. Like you go in for an interview, whether it's OHL interview or whatever, they're trying to get to know you as a person, see if you fit the mold of whatever player type they're looking for or person type they're looking for. And that's what I think the real opportunity is when you're in those situations, whether it's at a development camp or at a combine or whatever. You get a chance to talk to some people, meet some players, talk to the coach, talk to the GM, talk to whoever. And that's really where the impression can be made. And to your point, you were talking about earlier, you want the guys to look at you and say like, oh, like impressive kid, like that's good kid. We've got to keep our eye on that guy, kind of thing. You know, that's the goal. That's what you want to have, whether it's the interview or even just any conversation you're having with team personnel in general. That's probably the most important part about it. You know, have that piece where they're walking away thinking, we should watch that kid, or I should follow up with that guy, or oh, I forgot that he was coming here. He did well, or you know, those types of comments and those types of ways that they see you as a player and as a person.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
So anyways, that's the NHL Combine.
Yep.
That's all I got for that.
No, it's good. So I think that was more like we kind of went through like a full professional development thing there. That was kind of like what did we do?
We did.
We did the hard work, and then we got into interview stuff.
Ryan Leaf
stuff, combine stuff. So hopefully that's helpful. I think that's good. We'll leave it on that, and then maybe we'll start to dissect some more pieces of that in another episode, because I like that. That was a good talk. So anything else?
No, good to go. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, sweet.